Hello. Right. Just give me a moment here to get my tech things set up. I'm going to open up our chat. If you've joined me for these webinars, masterclasses, those types of things before, you'll know how this works. I'm going to type in hello in the chat there. If you can just respond, that allows me to know that A, you see the chat bar, B, that you actually heard what I said. So if you can, on that right-hand side, just say hello there. Hi, Michelle. Hi, Tara. Hi, Shireen, Laura, Marie-Eve. Awesome. Okay. All right. Hi, Claudette. So we have quite a few that are registered for this tonight. And for those of you, hi Beth, who are wondering, yes, we record all of these that you register for, and then we will send out the recordings. And usually it's about 24 to 48 hours before the recordings come out. We will give it a couple of minutes just to let people come into the room. What you can do for those of you who are already in the room and in the space, I just want to turn this light down a little bit so I'm not literally blinded by the light and then can't sleep tonight, is make sure you have something hydrating around you. So I have a cup of tea, you could have a glass of water, whatever it may be that you have for yourself. Also, it's, I think it's in your best interest to have pen and paper nearby so you can take some notes. Also, as I'm talking about my synced methodology and giving you a little bit more insight into what cycle syncing is, cycle awareness, creating that connection with your body, the difference between using your cycle as the gauge or tapping into the moon energy and the lunar cycle for those of you that either you don't have a menstrual cycle, you've already gone through menopause, or perhaps you're pregnant, perhaps you're postpartum, or you have a really irregular cycle. You do not have a consistent cycle. Therefore, trying to cycle sync and track based on your cycle is very, very challenging because there is no rhythm. So I'm going to take you through a couple of different scenarios and examples of that tonight. And then I'll leave the opportunity towards the end once I've taught you some things, because I think in the teaching, I will probably answer some of your questions. Then we can open up the floor and do a little bit of Q&A on this. So we're 7:32. I'm going to give it just 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we are going to get rolling. The other thing that I would strongly recommend is that you turn your phone off. You don't play halfway, meaning you haven't taken the time out of your evening to join here to only be listening partway through and then going on to Instagram, listening partway through and then answering emails. So we're going to be here for like 45, 60 minutes. Just shut down the other things so that you can open up that part of you that is curious enough to be here. Even if this is a recording that you're listening to, my fullest intention for those of you who listen to this as a recording is that you listen to this when you're on a walk, you listen to this when you are in some level of motion, so that you, again, are not distracted in a way where you're doing umpteen different things, but you can really absorb it and take it in. Okay, so, all right. Hi, Yale. Hi, Michelle. Okay, I'm going to get started on this. I'm going to be doing a bit of screen sharing tonight, which, because I'm actually going to take you behind the scenes and show you what the Synced studio, the site actually looks like. So here's the backstory on this and why I'm even hosting this webinar tonight. I tend to host webinars when we get an influx of a lot of questions. It's much easier for me to show up in this capacity to teach you, educate you, answer your questions, and then create something that is, has some legacy to it. It's got some hold. When we record it, you can listen again and again. So I created my synced methodology a couple of years ago for my own body. And here's why. I have been teaching group exercise for 24 years now. I started when I was 17, teaching like aerobics, grapevine, and heel kicks and step and all of that stuff, and transitioned into working into gyms when I came out of school, personal training. If I was teaching everything, you name it, from spin to boot camp to the aerobics to then doing my yoga teacher training and then Pilates and CrossFit level 1. And I mean, everything, sport conditioning, conditioning, if there was something that was out that was new and exciting, I was teaching it, except for Zumba, because it's not acceptable to drink before you teach. And I would definitely needed to have had a glass of wine to do the choreography in those classes, because that's not, I don't have those dancing kind of bones in my body. So I don't teach Zumba. That's probably the only discipline that I don't teach. And so anyways, I was doing this for all these years, training all of these clients, teaching these classes, loving it for a period of time. I was doing fitness competitions. I've done 3 fitness competitions. And what I was starting to find is that my body was not responding the same way. The older that I was getting, so I'm 41 now, I was finding in my mid to late 30s, things were just changing. My energy level wasn't, it's not that I didn't have energy, I just couldn't show up to those type of high intensity interval training classes in the same capacity. And this is around the same time that I started to do functional hormone testing, functional testing in a way where I was able to really understand what was going on. And so for me, when I got a glimpse into what was happening within my hormones, I had a better sense of what was going on in my adrenals and my thyroid. Everything started to come together. And I was like, the way I've been approaching exercise in a gym environment is actually, it's holding my body back. It's creating more inflammation. It's creating the opportunity for a little bit more weight to sit in certain areas. It is impeding my recovery. It's actually starting to take some of my energy and that bandwidth from me as opposed to add it. And so that was one layer of how I came up with the synced methodology. I knew I needed to change something and I couldn't find it. I also knew at that same time that as I was testing hormones and I was getting much more passionate about this side of my work, that our phases of our cycle, the phases of the moon, truly impacted us. They impacted us on a physical level, on an energetic level, mentally and emotionally. And I was really struggling with trying to follow a program that was set for me, either by my trainer at the time, or that was released in a magazine, or like the next big program, or the Beachbody release that was coming out, is that no matter how motivated I was, no matter what my intention was that I set, okay, it's Monday, like this is a fresh week, a fresh month, I'm going to do it, I'm going to fully commit, I would feel good for a period of time. And then I would feel that depletion. I would feel that burnout. I would start to get diminishing returns, meaning I had changes happening in my body in the beginning, and then something wasn't connecting. I would look at the schedule that was put together for me, or what I thought I needed to do to work out with. And then I would be like, okay, I don't actually like, I'm coming into my period. I don't want to be training like this right now. Or, I'm ovulating and I'm a little bit more tender. I'm a bit more emotional. I don't want to be training like this right now. And then I would have times in my cycle where I was like I am, Shira, hear me roar. I was like, I have all this energy and all this tenacity to like get in there and lift the heavy weights and pick things up and, chuck them back down on the ground. And I was like, there's something to this. So I started to track in my workout journal. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen like when I show you some of my stuff, I've been keeping a workout journal since I was 15. I think it's just the Virgo in me. Like I'm very writing oriented. Like I have lots of books and journals all around me all the time. And so I started to track and recognize, isn't this interesting? When I'm at this point in my menstrual cycle, my body feels this way. And when I'm at this point in my cycle, I feel like doing this type of movement. And I began to allow myself to use my cycle as the gauge as to what I was doing in my workouts. And what started to happen, I got more out of my training sessions. I actually spent less time training and got better results. My recovery was so much better. My connection to exercise was healthier in regards to, it wasn't just about looking a certain way or achieving a certain goal. It was coming down to feeling a certain way. And that was the big shift for me. It was the big framework flip, is that we force ourselves to do the thing that we're being told through social media, through commercials, infomercials, books, magazines, what your neighbor, your girlfriend, your coworker is doing. And we start to take that on and wear it as that's what we're supposed to be doing, without recognizing that we have our own body, we have our own chemistry, we have our own needs. And so when I was trying to find a program that was based on a woman's cycle, there was none. Didn't exist. It literally did not exist. And so I was just like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to create it. And I started to do this for myself behind the scenes. And one day in a team meeting, I said to my team, I have been training based on my cycle for like the last 6 to 7, 8 months, and I am loving it. And then what did my team say? Tell me more. So then I beta tested it on my team. My team started to do it. My team was seeing and feeling the difference. Then I started to beta test it on private clients I was working with. They were feeling the difference. And then it evolved into what it is today. And I think what is, even more important than the exercise part of it is bringing this awareness to our cycles, bringing this awareness to this rhythm of our body. I don't know a single woman who, when they were a young girl, when they were a tween, when they got their period, when they were a teenager, when they were in their 20s, their 30s, I don't know a single girl or woman who I've spoken to who is like, oh yeah, I was taught the fertility awareness method. I was taught to track my temperature. I was taught to track my cycle. I was taught to write it down. I was taught that there was different times the month that our body was going to go different things. Those conversations are starting to happen nowadays because we're talking about it. There is myself and other practitioners who are putting this information out there into the world. I talk about this all the time on my podcast. I'm putting it out there into Instagram. And a lot of women will have this initial reaction like, oh my God, I don't fully understand it, but this makes so much sense. Why aren't we taught this? Why are we not? This makes so much sense as to why, like if you hear when people talk about full moons, the lunatics come out. Well, lunacy is from the word lunar. There are changes that happen in our environment. Those of us that also live in areas where we have distinct seasons, like I live in North America, I live in Ontario, north of Toronto. We have 4 very distinct seasons. Our seasons dramatically impact the rhythm of our bodies as well. So not only do we have 4 phases of every single menstrual cycle, every single moon cycle, we have 4 seasons of every single calendar year. Now, just to get a poll here before I go a little bit deeper, because I can shape this conversation tonight in many different ways. I'm curious out of those of you who are on here live tonight, how many of you, I'm going to ask you 3 different questions. The first question is, how many of you track your cycles? If you could just answer with a yes or no on that sidebar in the chat for me so I can understand where everyone's knowledge is at. Yes, yes, no, I do. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes, yes. Okay. So most of you who are responding, there's a couple who have said no, but most of you, yes. If you don't have one, are you aware that the moon cycle is the cycle that you would be connecting to? So here's the big myth. We are taught as women that when you stop having a bleed, when the uterine lining stops shedding, when you go into menopause, when ovulation has ended, you no longer have a cycle. Not true. You no longer have a menstrual cycle. You no longer have an ovulatory event that is happening that is then leading up to the shedding of your uterine lining. You still have cycles happening in your body on an energetic, mental, and emotional level. And that is connected to the moon 100%. So this is another huge disadvantage that has been created for women, is that when you stop bleeding, it's like, have you ever heard people say things like, oh, you're all dried up, or like, that doesn't impact you anymore. Hormones, like you don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore. Totally not true. And for those of you that are in menopause and don't have a period anymore, I want you to really think back to when you did have your period. What was your period like? What was your history with your menstrual cycle? Was it heavy? Was it uncomfortable? What were your symptoms coming into it? Did you have heavy, painful breast tenderness? Did you get migraines? Did you have any issues in terms of fertility and conceiving? All these different things. When I work with somebody who comes into my practice who has imbalances showing up with their hormones in menopause, right? Oftentimes it'll be lack of hormones, but their thyroid is also a big component of this. I need to go back and understand when you were menstruating. Tell me more. There are clues within our menstrual health. There are clues within our past. There are clues within our health history. And we need to pull all of that information up to the woman that we are sitting here today so that we can start to understand why our body is maybe feeling the way that it's feeling, why there might be certain levels of struggle, why some things feel more manageable for our system and other things don't. So this level of awareness, and when I show you inside of the actual membership site, I've written a whole guidebook that walks you through, if you do not have a period, this is how you sync up to the moon energy. So we just came through a very powerful full moon on Halloween, also the night of the time change. It was a very loaded, energetic weekend for that full moon. And what that means now is that we are in the waning moon. We are in that period of time where that moon is starting to contract. The moon is starting to shrink back down and preparing for that new moon energy. And as I take you through this tonight, I'm going to break it down for you to understand the 4 energetic phases and physical phases of what's happening if you menstruate and if you are following the moon, because they connect. They're not different. And so I know this can be so hard to understand. So stay with me and ask questions on the side if you're just like, I did not understand what you just said. The only difference we have is a physical difference when we are menstruating versus when we are not menstruating, in terms of what is happening. When you have a menstrual cycle, you are most likely still ovulating. When you do not have a menstrual cycle, you are not ovulating. We have been taught as a woman that your period is the main event. It is not. Your period is the culmination event. Your period, that bleeding, that shedding of that lining of the uterus, that is the final phase. It's not the first phase. The most important part of our cycle is ovulation. Why is that the most important part? Because that ovulation means that we had enough of the follicular stimulating hormone, enough of that surge and rise in testosterone and estrogen to select one of the eggs in our ovaries to release it. If you don't have ovulation each month, if you don't release that egg, your body does not have any material, any tools to work with to produce progesterone. And so if you've ever been told that you have too much estrogen, too little progesterone, maybe you've suffered from miscarriages, maybe you've had these horrible migraines and these horrible PMS and PMDD symptoms coming into your menstrual cycle, and you get told like, yeah, you have unopposed estrogen or estrogen dominance, or you have low progesterone, but no one's actually teaching you what the heck that means or testing you appropriately, it comes down to how healthy is your ovulation. That ovulation is what is going to be setting your body up for that healthy actual bleed and menstrual cycle, okay? When you no longer ovulate, you are still going to feel different rhythms in your body. You're still going to have these times of feeling, whether it is like way more feminine, wanting to put your energy out there, put yourself out there, much more social, versus coming into that new moon energy or your period, you're gonna pull yourself in. You're gonna introvert more. It's called the fertile void. It's like that hibernation energy. So just let me know at this point right here. Are you with me at this point? I know it's a lot of information. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to explain both sides of it. But so far, are you like with me? Are you intrigued? Are you curious? Okay, I'm going to take a sip of tea. Okay, awesome. If I can also tell you, this is like gifting your daughter. If you have girls or your nieces or just young women you're mentoring and influencing, this is like giving them the most powerful access to a gift that lives inside of them. And I have a daughter and I have a son, and my son is just as educated about this as my daughter is, because I want him to show up differently for the girls in his life, whether it's friends, girlfriends, his wife one day, his daughter. It's important for all of us to be able to understand these things, to remove any level of embarrassment, shame, disconnect from it being dirty, something that's bathroom talk. It's not what we talk about. This is the most beautiful thing that happens in our body. It is a divine gift that we are all born with. It is our superpower. And P.S., us menstruating is how men are here. So this is something we really need to tap into and get much more comfortable talking about and really empowered about it. And how you become empowered about something? How do you become empowered about something? How do you think that happens? Real question. How do you become more empowered about something? What has to happen to help to create the empowerment? You have to, knowledge, Tara, that's it. Knowledge. Knowledge is what creates empowerment. So I am hoping by the time we get off here tonight that I have helped you to, yes, Michelle, open your mind, to get a deeper sense of knowledge, and to be curious to ask more questions, and to dive a little deeper, and to trust your body, to trust this process, to try it on for size and allow yourself to experience it. Okay. Because if you let it, it will completely change your relationship to yourself. I promise you that. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the 4 distinct phases and why tracking your cycle is and was very important, okay? So most of us are told that an average cycle is going to be 28 days long. That could be an average cycle, but it's not the only cycle. And if you don't have a 28-day cycle, it doesn't mean that your body is not healthy. You could have a healthy regular cycle anywhere from 23 days up to 35 days. The key is it regular and consistent for you and for your body? And do you have any symptoms, anything that knocks you out of life for a period of time coming into your cycle? If you do, if you have a much shorter cycle, a much longer cycle, a cycle that could be anywhere in between those days, sometimes longer, and it knocks your legs out from underneath you, you have to call in sick to work, you can't function, you feel like you're not the best version of yourself at any point in the month because of your menstrual cycle, that is an imbalance. That's actually inflammation. And so it's important to note this just as much as it's important to note down how often your period's coming, noticing the quality of your bleed, how long it lasts for. All of those things are so, so important. Like, I get giddy when I am doing an intake with a woman and she just, like, she knows and she's aware and she looks and pays attention and she can recollect and go back and be like, oh yeah. Like, I love working with women in menopause, because when you can teach a woman in menopause this information, it's like you give her this new lease on belief of her body. You give her this new sense of potential. And in the work that I do, I will often talk to women about bioidentical hormones, but I won't even lean into that until they've done a few months of actual seed cycling, of moon cycling. And we can see, what does your body do if we actually give you the fundamental tools? We build an underpinning first, then where are things at, and then we can move forward if we ever needed to do those. So here we go. Phase 1 of your cycles. Okay. So what I'm going to do is break it down like this. I'm going to explain to you phase 1 of your period, menstrual cycle, and then phase 1 of the moon and how they connect together. Now, languaging is very important. When I'm saying cycle, that is not your period. Your cycle is from the first day you get a period all the way through until you get a next cycle. If you are following the moon cycle, it's an entire lunar cycle, meaning this new moon all the way through until the next new moon. That is called a cycle. Your period is when you bleed. If you follow the lunar cycle, you have no period. You just have the one cycle. Okay. Now, first phase is what's called the follicular phase. Okay. Now, the follicular phase in a menstruating woman's body is typically going to be 7 to 10 days long, really depends on the woman. And this is that week after she has finished having her period. This is when you start to feel energetically like you are coming back into your body. Your brain starts to feel sharp again. Your cognition is up. Your energy is coming back. You start to feel like yourself. Now, if I'm describing any of these and you're like, that is not my experience, just stay with me, because we're all different. Okay. In theory, this is where the body, should be at. The follicular phase is also where we are starting to produce more of the follicular stimulating hormone in the brain, the pituitary gland, that is going to be communicating to your thyroid, communicating to your adrenals, communicating to your ovaries. So if we have any issues in the thyroid, the adrenals, the ovaries, we always go upstream. We've got to start back with the brain, with that HPA axis. It's so important to understand this. So in that follicular phase, energy is back, brain is feeling sharp, sex drive is maybe starting to return, bloating is dissipating, digestion is probably getting a bit better. Like I said, you're starting to feel like yourself. You want to start to work out again. This is when maybe you're craving, like you've got the motivation. This period of time for us as women, the follicular phase, or for those of you who are in the moon cycle, this would be the waxing moon. The time in between the new moon and the full moon, when it is starting to grow, right? It's like that big energy is building up, this is the time when we are typically wanting to lift heavier weights, fewer amount of repetitions, where we're wanting to do the strong workouts, okay? Also, first half of the cycle, this follicular phase, when our body does a better job regulating insulin and glucose. It's when we can tolerate slightly higher amounts of carbohydrates and our body can do a better job with it. Now, after that follicular phase, that's phase one, this is preparing your body now. Surge of testosterone, surge of estrogen. This is starting to increase your sex drive. Why is it starting to increase your sex drive? It is because you're moving into ovulation when your body is primed to believe that if we're ovulating, we're getting ready to procreate. So estrogen is going to make you feel more feminine. It's going to make you feel a little more confident, a little sexier in your body. You might find that this is the time of the month when you brush your hair, put some earrings on. You just do that extra little thing and you feel more confident. Like I said, you're putting yourself out there. Then you come into your ovulation, where this is the main event. And ovulation is short. Typically in our bodies, it's 24 to 48 hours. Ovulation is the same energy as the full moon. It's this building up to it. It is this brilliance. You can't not notice that big, beautiful full moon in the sky. The energy, you feel that charge when the full moon is coming on. Now, that energy in some women can also mean they don't sleep when the full moon happens. Their hot flashes intensify. They might feel the twinges of when they're ovulating. They might have more breast tenderness. Their cravings might increase. These, again, are all really important things to pay attention to and to make note of, because when you are working with somebody on this, these are like, it's like you're a detective, and these are all the little bits of evidence that are building up that case that is your health. And so paying attention to that from an exercise perspective, this is the perfect time to add in some of the high intensity interval training, the burst training, like the power spin class, the things where you're just like, oh, like it feels so good. Then once you've ovulated, your body now, you lower the amount of that follicular stimulating hormone. Estrogen starts to have a dip, and now progesterone is the hormone that should come onto the scene. Your luteinizing hormone. And progesterone, estrogen is like it's like your sympathetic. It's like that rah, 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 the cheerleader. Progesterone is like, okay, like life is good, but let's just chill. Progesterone is like your chill, sit back. It's your rest and digest. Like, we're good. Progesterone is also a hormone in your body that says, like, you've had fun for the last couple weeks, but just so you know, if we were, frisky and we were ovulating, we potentially could have created life. We need to just pull things back a little bit. We need to be careful how we're moving our body. We need to honor the fact that we need to start to complete some of the projects that we had up in the air. The waning phase, or that luteal phase after ovulation before your period comes on, it's the longest phase that we go through, both in our menstrual cycle and in the moon. And that is the time for completion. Wrap things up. When you start to get that, it's like that nesting feeling, right? Where you're like, I want to clean every closet in the house. It's spring. That's what that phase is. It's that energy of like, we need to make sure that we're like calming everything down, and getting rid of. And it actually energetically, it doesn't represent the spring. Luteal phase is actually the fall. It's what we're in right now. We are in an energy of completion. We are in an energy of like, clean up the yard, put the things away, prepare for the next season, get ready to hunker down, get ready to go inward. So when you're talking about workouts, this is not the time to be PRing, to be cranking out, to be running for 2 hours, to be doing Orange Theory, to be going. And it's like, I've worked in this industry my entire life. I love all forms of exercise. So I'm not slamming different types of movement like CrossFit and Orange Theory and spin and all this. I do these things. I like these things, but there is a time and a place, because you're not a man. You're not a dude. You don't have a body that's going through a 24-hour cycle. You have to respect that you cannot have a Monday to Friday workout routine simply based on the classes that are available. You've got to tap in and tune into your body, or you are going to create friction. You are not going to feel the best. And that I can guarantee you'll get away with it for a while. And it's like, as you start to get into your 30s and your 40s, or stress increases, your dynamics change, your time, availability, all of that, you are going to start to feel the compounding impact of that and those diminishing returns. So that luteal energy, really important because it's such a long time, and it's what's leading you into your actual either bleed, which is the fourth phase, your menstrual cycle, or it's leading you into the new moon. When your body is preparing for your period or is preparing for the new moon, think about when you look into the sky and it's the new moon. Do you see the moon? Think about that. When it's the new moon, do you see the moon in the sky? Real question again. You do not. It is the shadow. It is dark. You do not see it. It is called the fertile void. It is the withdraw. It is the hibernation. It is the winter. The new moon represents the winter. It represents that in our body, we are not meant to be bright and shiny and out there and super busy and doing all of the things and training at a certain intensity when our body is preparing to be shedding an organ. I don't think you understand that when you have your period, you are literally shedding organ tissue that you then have to regenerate and grow. That is a workout all in of itself. So if you are pulling the thread, if you are pushing your system, and I don't even just mean working out, I mean your schedule is jam-packed. You have no boundaries. You say yes to everyone. You don't stand up for what your own body and system needs. You're not feeding yourself appropriately, which is the trickiest part about this luteal phase coming into the period, or that time between the full moon and the new moon, especially right now as it's darker earlier, like the sun set today at 4:54 p.m. What are you going to look for? You're going to look for carbs. You're going to look for salt. You're going to look for sugar. You are going to look for a stimulant, something that's going to give you a hit of dopamine, make you feel good, quiet down any of those uneasy emotions or symptoms or whatever it is that you have. And this compounds it and makes your system actually feel worse over time. So if you're that person that week coming into your period, you're like, oh gosh, it's not a good week. My family wants to move out. I want to eat all of the things. I'm super emotional. Like my body feels like it's broken during those days and leading into my period. And then the first couple of days, this is a big sign from your body. And it's not just raising its hand. It is like putting its hand on your shoulder or grabbing your wrist to try to pull you back and be like, hey, pay attention. This is not normal. We are not meant to feel like this as women. This is not a rite of passage. No, you did not sign up for this. It might be common that so many women talk about. There is nothing normal about feeling like you are losing days out of every month because of your menstrual cycle. It is not meant to be that way. And I can sure as heck promise you, it does not need to be that way. Same thing if you're in menopause and you feel like you are riding this emotional roller coaster. You go through your ups and your downs. You go through periods of time where your vaginal dryness is way worse. Your hot flashes way worse. You know, the quality of your hair, your skin, all of those things. You're just like, you feel like you've nailed it. And then you come around another corner and you're like, frig, here's another mountain I've got to climb and move uphill. It shouldn't always feel like an uphill battle. These are things you have to pay attention to. When you're coming into that luteal phase, that end part before your cycle, this is also where dietary wise, some things change. This is where you want to make sure you're getting enough protein. You're getting enough amino acids. This is where you might lower, not cut, lower the type or amount of carbohydrates that you're bringing in so that your blood sugar is more balanced, right? Your cortisol is more balanced because cortisol's main job is not just to support your stress response in your adrenals, it's a glucose manager. And that glucose and insulin, your blood sugar, it is queen. If our blood sugar is not in balance, you literally cannot be in balance, okay? Your mood won't be in balance. You will have inflammatory issues. It'll impact things like blood pressure, cognition, performance, sleep, everything. So that period of time coming into your menstrual cycle, are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough fiber? Are you getting enough fat into your body so that you're satiated? If you're satiated, you won't have the cravings, okay? So it's understanding that as well too. And then as we come into our menstrual phase, which is the fourth and final phase, so you've got that follicular, ovulatory, luteal, and then you have your menstrual phase, your actual period. Okay, that is the final phase. The new moon is the final phase. And that is when we again need to pull back. And I'm not saying you like call into work and are like, I feel fine, but it's the first 2 days of my period and it's the new moon and I am supposed to just pull back and I am supposed to hibernate. doesn't actually work like that. And so what I teach you inside of Synced in the methodology is how you can honor where your body is at energetically, how you can create those appropriate boundaries, how you can move your body in a way that you don't feel so depleted, that you don't feel burnt out, you don't feel like every month you've got to like pick yourself back up and start from ground zero again. Okay, so important to understand that we are not the same woman every single day of the month. We are changing on a continuum. And that doesn't mean that we're, you know, these moody women, that we're these unpredictable women. What is moody and unpredictable is the way that we are being taught about this. We have been taught that we're bitchy, we're PMSy, you know, the language and the connotation around our menstrual cycle. We don't want our girls to take this on. We don't want to be treated that way. Sometimes we're just in a bad mood because some people are just not, you know, nice people, or situations have just happened and things have ticked us off. It doesn't mean that it's always connected back to your cycle, your hormones, those types of things. Now, within the Synced method, I lay everything out in calendar format for you. So there are calendars for how you're going to exercise and move your body. And I will keep using those words interchangeably because exercise and movement are not the same thing. Okay. And stay with me on this. Movement, I want you to move your body every single day. What is movement? Movement is walking. Movement is standing versus sitting at your desk all day. Movement is keeping your body in motion. Movement could be legs up the wall. Movement could be soaking in a bath to support your lymphatic system. Movement could be stretching. It could be foam rolling. It could be using yoga tune-up balls. It could be a massage for your lymphatic system. Movement is stimulating your body in a different way. It could be breath work. It could be meditation. Exercise is where we are creating some level of progressive overload, where we are increasing your heart rate, we are increasing your respiratory rate, we are increasing your body temperature, where we are making you uncomfortable. We are creating friction in a way where we are actually tearing muscle fibers. When we lift weights, that's what we do. We are actually tearing muscle fibers. We are creating an opportunity for the food that you eat, the rest that you create, the things that you supplement with to go in, the hormones that you're provided at that time of the month to go in, to heal, to create better muscle density. This is going to help to change your composition. So if you struggle with your weight and you say things like, I want to get more toned, first of all, understand tone is not actually what you're after. Tone is an appearance. It's not a thing. Tone is referred to when we talk about the tone of your nervous system, the tone of your spine, the tone of your vagus nerve. When we're talking about muscles, you're either building muscle or you are not building muscle. You are either adding to your muscle density or you are taking away from your adipose density. So the fat muscle ratio in your body is your composition. And what we're really trying to do as women, and this is non-negotiable in my eyes, is we need to be doing load-bearing strength training. It's not the excessive cardio. It is not 5 spin classes a week. It is not 5 Peloton classes a week. It is not running 10K 5 times a week. It is not doing all the excessive cardio. Low steady state, totally fine. You want to do those things a couple of times a week, depending on your cycle, totally fine. You need to be lifting things. You need to be doing strength training. You need to be using your body weight, using free weights, using bands, maybe picking up a barbell. You need to do things that are going to challenge you and that are going to have you think in your head, like, I do not like this girl right now. I would be that girl teaching you in this. I do not like her right now. If she says one more repetition, or guess what, bonus round, if I have to lift this thing one more time, like you in your head, there should be a conversation happening where you're like, no, I don't want to. But you finish that set and you're like, oh, that was so good. I'm so proud of myself. It's not this thing where like, I am in pain. This is 911 pain. There is sharp shooting pain. I can't do this anymore. I am dizzy. It is not that. This is like challenging yourself to a healthy proportion. Okay. And in that first half of your cycle, when you're working with me, I'm going to challenge you to do that. And I have this all laid out. So if you're the woman who has a 24, 25-day cycle, I have calendars. I have beginner, intermediate, and advanced for every single cyclical thing that we have going on. So there's a calendar if you have a shorter cycle. There's a calendar if you fall into that like 27 to 30-day cycle. There are calendars for if you're beyond that and have a longer cycle. I teach you if you have very irregular cycles, you have PCOS or you're perimenopausal, so you don't really know when the period fairy is going to appear. You could go 6 months without a bleed and then you get one. I teach you how to follow the moon. And there are 3 different calendars for every single phase or stage that you would be at to pick, pull, and choose from based on your body. Now, how you use this is that you need to do this properly for at least your first 3 to 4 months, okay? Then I have an entire library with more than 70 videos to pick and choose from. And so this is what I do. At the beginning of the week, so on Sundays, I sit down with my workout journal and I pull up my Synced website, like the membership page. This is an online studio. And I pull it up and I look at where I'm going to be at in my phase. So right now I'm in my luteal phase. So all the workouts I picked this week were based on my luteal phase and what is going to support me the most. Okay. And I'm going to share my screen to show you here. Give me 1 second. So you can see what you would see when you go in on this. So when you do this, you are going to set up your own login information. So this is like our main page. So we have membership sites for the Hormone Project and for Synced. So if you are coming into Synced with us, you're going to set up your login. It's going to take you and give you access to Synced. You have lifetime access to all of this, lifetime access. I have tons of videos in here teaching you so you understand what is going on in your body, okay? So this one says, watch this first. Very important, so that you understand how you are moving through this. I have an entire guidebook that you download that, again, is breaking down the 4 different phases. You get all 3 of my books, my cookbooks, my simplicity book in this. You also get, every season, we give you a new meal plan. We give you a new meal plan. We give you recipes to go with this. So the meal plans are based on that season. You'll have a meal plan to follow during your follicular phase or the new moon. Then you'll have a meal plan to follow during your ovulation or the full moon. And then you'll have, and waxing, and then you'll have a meal plan to follow during that waning moon and coming into your period. So we break it all down for you so that you understand what are some of the more supportive foods to eat at these times of the month. What are some of these recipes that you could be, tapping into? And the more that you do this, you will start to understand, regardless of where you're eating or what the week brings to you, you'll know these are the better foods that actually make my system feel so much better at this time of the month versus not. The biggest, best testimonials that come back are the women that say, literally, Jen, just the fact of lining up my food based on my cycle, that bloating and that extra little bit I was holding on to around my waist, gone. My sluggish bowels, I'm pooping every day. Me feeling tired after eating, I'm not feeling that anymore. And we didn't give them a whole bunch of supplements or anything like that. It literally was about the timing and pairing of what they were eating based around what was happening in their body. So these are all downloadable. You can save everything. Again, you get access always. So when you come into Synced, it's not, and here's the thing, like early adapters, for the women who've been with us since we first launched this, every single time I do an upgrade, you are never charged again. You continue to get everything new. Like, I don't know if you've been following right now, but I recently decided, because I've been an instructor my whole life, and there was many years where that is what put food on our table, was me teaching classes, working in gyms, owning my own studio. I cannot imagine what it feels like for these instructors who have lost their jobs right now because gyms have closed down. These owners who have lost their life's, work and passion because they're not allowed to open up. And so I did an open call audition for instructors from anywhere who were struggling to earn a paycheck, and said, this is a paid position I'm going to create for you. I want to offer more live classes to my community every week. I will pay you to come on and do it. So we had over 50 that applied. We have 7 instructors over the next 4 weeks that are going to be doing live auditions for our Synced community. And then these women are going to help me narrow it down to 4 new teachers that I'm going to be hiring. What's beautiful is these women are of all different ages, all different shapes, all different backgrounds, all different They teach things it's not my scope, not my zone of genius. And they're amazing at it. And their energy they bring forward. Like, I'm so excited to be introducing the women of my community to this, because it's great that, there's 70 videos that I've done in there, but you don't only want to just hear my voice. Somebody else might cue something different or teach something in a way where you're like, oh my gosh, that connects to me so much. And for those of you who love exercise and movement, you know this. You are showing up to the energy of the instructor. You're showing up to, there's something about that you just resonate with. It's not about the exercises themselves necessarily, or that it's something beyond that. So you get up the accessibility to all of that. I break it down for you on exactly where to begin, step by step. I also take you through some different pieces of equipment that you might need, where you can purchase them, where you can order online. I'll tell you right now, it is a bit more challenging than it's been before to find workout equipment, because pretty much everybody has created a home gym. Which this is like one of those things where talk about being an early adopter. I had no idea years ago when I was creating this, that this was going to be the way that most people were going to be training. And I know, hearing from women, they've said like, oh, I've lost my motivation not being in a gym. I've lost my motivation not being in a group setting and in a class. I need someone to tell me what to do. It's not for lack of knowing. It's the motivation. It's the accountability. It's that, man, like when I'm teaching, there's times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to stop. And then I'm like, nope, you have hundreds of women watching you right now. You got to pick that weight back up, Jen. It keeps us accountable, and it keeps us striving. So there's all that there. I also have a full-time Facebook manager, Ashley Powell, who is in our Facebook group that is there to answer your questions. We have incredible women in there who help out as well too. And I've actually just hired a synced success coach that will be booking consults with women who are just like, oh my gosh, I don't know my up from my down when it comes to my cycle. I'm so confused. And so again, like there's more things that we're adding into this, and you just get it. You just get it when you're with us. This is lifetime access for every upgrade. Now, here's how the workouts work. And we've broken things down from a tech perspective. So this is Vanessa. She's the program of all the directors. She walks you through how to access everything, how to get into our calendar, how to get into the videos, how to save these. I always hook mine up to my HDMI cable and put them on the TV to work out. The whole workout video library, and then we've broken it down. Let me go down here for you. We have broken it down. So, okay, the follicular phase or the waxing moon phase. Every single video in here, and there's 4 different pages with all the different videos that you could pick and choose from. Booty flow, fusion flow. There's yoga-based ones. There's upper body. If we keep going through, there are so many videos you can pick and choose from. Some of them are as short as 10 to 12 minutes. Most of them are 30 to 45 minutes. Some of them are an hour. You can pick and choose based on how much time do you have? What type of a workout are you looking for in that day? So I've put so much heart and soul and passion into creating this for the woman that I have been training for the last 24 years of my life, for the woman that I have been for the last 4 decades of my life. I've created something that I want my daughter to be using. My nieces are using it. My sister, my 70 some odd year old mom is so intrigued by this. This is all your coming into the ovulatory, the full moon phase. So different workouts now that are based on that. And again, 4 different pages with all different videos of that. The luteal phase or the waning moon phase. Again, all different workouts that you go in and pick and choose. Pilates-based, yoga-based, core-based, upper body and core, blissful hips, all these different movements. And then the final phase coming into the new moon phase or the menstrual phase. And again, all different videos that you can pick and choose from based on where you are at energy-wise. Now, we also have master classes. So every month I offer something. So some months I hop on for an hour and I do a full-blown ask me anything, like load me up with your questions. Let's break it apart. I bring in guests. I have pelvic floor physiotherapists who join us. We did one with my girlfriend, Dr. Ali Kane, who's a chiropractor, and she has a company called GrowCo, and it's all about pelvic floor and the things that have happened, after you've given birth or during pregnancy and all of that. We have a whole whole slew of guest masterclass teachers that are coming on. And then right now, the latest thing that we are creating is a whole FAQ library for you. So here's what I've learned. I'm gonna stop share for a moment. Here's what I've learned is that if somebody asks, if the same question is asked more than a couple of times, we need to actually create like a response for that can be somewhere that people can access. So that's what we are working on behind the scenes. This is, I always say, like, my programs are literally like going back to school. This is what I wish existed in high school gym classes. This is what I wish existed when you got to high school and you were separated and it was like, there's girls gym class and there's boys gym class. This is what I wish that we were taught in those ages to understand about our bodies so that we were able to move forward into our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond with that confidence, that empowerment that I am talking about. And it is never too late to start to do this. Like I said, I was in my late 30s when I really started to do this. And at 41, I am more confident in my body, more connected to my body, feel like the things that I'm doing are more on purpose than they ever have been in my life. And I've been in this industry literally my whole life. I started teaching my first class when I was 9 years old at Glenway Country Club in Newmarket. It was a kids cardio class. By 14, I was at the gym every single day with my dad. And at 17, I was the youngest instructor that they hired there to be teaching these women that were like my mom's age. This is like, it's in me, it's in my DNA. And, I've done all the extremes and I've done the competitions and that. And I see women beating their bodies up. I see them working too hard. And it's a very hard thing for women to understand that they could train in this way. They could train with less pain, oftentimes less time than what they've been training, and actually feel better. And that moving this way will align their menstrual cycles. Moving this way will calm down their menopausal symptoms. Moving this way will actually create a deeper connection to themselves as a whole. And, too often as women, I think what happens is we say, well, what do you think? What do you think about? If I were to say to you, what do you think about that? Or how does, no. The question you want to ask yourself is like, what do you feel about that? Like, how does the idea of honoring your body in this way feel? There's a difference. If we ask what you think, you're going to go up here and try and make logic and sense out of it. Your amygdala, that posterior part of the brain, is going to come in, which is just hardwired to keep you safe. And it's actually hardwired. It's like a pessimist. It's also hardwired to be like the devil's advocate, the doubter. No, like drop in here, drop into your gut, drop into your uterus, drop into your body and ask yourself, like, how does that feel? If that is actually the way that we were to move through our bodies as women, is by actually tapping into the wisdom of our bodies as women. Ladies, we are so powerful, so powerful. The amount of potential, the amount of deep knowing that we have, there is a feminine rising that is happening right now that is palpable. And I really do believe that Synced is going to be one of the vehicles that helps women get there, not necessarily faster, but in a much smoother way. So that's what I wanted to share tonight. That's what I hope, answered a lot of questions for people. And we've still got a little bit of time here. If you want to ask me some questions about the Synced methodology, if there's something where you're like, oh, I was hoping she was going to, explain this, but didn't, we've got about 10 minutes. So ask away, ask me your questions. This is the beauty about people who come on to the live experience, right? Is you get to ask the questions. Does all of that, so if I'm asking you, like literally, what does it feel like to move that way through your body and to approach what you're doing in your life, in your movement, in your nourishment from that perspective versus what we've been taught otherwise? Does it connect for you? And how many of you feel like you wish you knew this information from a much younger age? Would have solved a lot of things, I think, for a lot of women. Strange at first, because now I'm doing less. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. I'm menopausal. Wish I knew this earlier. Yeah, but you know what, Donna? Menopause is again another layer of a gift that we're just not taught enough about. And like this is it. This is the now. Yeah, I wish it was around when we were younger. Yes, for sure. Okay, so here's the thing. Like you get the opportunity to be an ambassador of this and start to talk to more women about it. Like we have to change the conversation from being like, oh yeah, I know periods are the worst. Like PMS is such a bitch. And like, oh, I just, that, and doing that thing and clanking our wine glasses over it. We have to stop doing that and normalizing that and be like, but you know what? Do you think we're meant to feel like this? Like, do you think that's normal that we feel this awful that many days? Like, if you total this up, if you were to think to yourself, because I'll tell you, doing what I do for a living with women, I would say that the average woman who's suffering would say, if I were to ask her out of a month, how many days in a month do you think you don't feel like yourself based on your cycle? They'd typically say, if I had to total up, it's 5 to 7 days. So that is like a week out of every month. Okay. So that's 12 weeks a year. That's 3 months. That's 3 months out of an entire year that you are feeling not your best and at the mercy of your beautiful menstrual cycle. That how often is it referred to as being beautiful, as being a gift, as being a report card? It's a messenger. It's giving us clues. It's an internal voice, right? It's literally a tool that we have been given. And when you start to understand that, it changes for you. I can't believe all my life I didn't question this, right? Man, if I could have taken you all back to my grade 10 gym classes, and I remember so vividly going into the change rooms with my girlfriends and being like, okay, you know what we just learned? So not true. That is not true. And, here I am at 16 years old, then 15, 16 years old. And it's not that I had this knowledge base at that point. Then I had a deep knowing. I knew. I remember at 17 picking up a book at a yoga studio called Taking Charge of Your Fertility, reading this. And not because I was like trying to perfect my fertility and get pregnant, but the book literally fell at my feet, like no joke, off a shelf. And I picked it up and I was like, charting your cycle. That like, you are not on this webinar tonight by accident. Like there's something in this for you. How do you track your cycle menopause through the moon? So how I explained it and in the guidebook. So you would be tracking, the moon is consistent. So the moon is on average is a 29.5 day cycle. And you, like I have an entire moon calendar. You can't actually see it. It hangs next to my bed underneath my sconce that's there. But moon calendars are, on your online calendar, you can download them. And so right now we are in we're in the waning moon. We've just had the full moon. So when you join the membership, when you join the program, I walk you through every single phase and what that means in terms of what exercises you're doing, what videos you're doing, how you're eating. It gets all laid out. When you put it like that, OMG, do our cycles actually sync to the phase or the moon? No. Okay, so this is a great question. And we get asked this all the time because there's a lot of confusion. You're not trying to force your menstrual cycle to match the moon at all. It's one or the other. So and sometimes the longer that you do this, sometimes you'll find that your menstrual cycle is in complete alignment with the moon, okay? And that's great, but it doesn't mean that anything is wrong with your body if your period doesn't come with the new moon. If you're, and there's different theories as well too, like there's white moon bleeds, which are the women, and there are so many villages and tribes and communities around the world today where this is actually what little girls are taught from as young as they can understand. We're not. North America, of course not. Why would they teach us this? We'd be too empowered. We'd be too knowledgeable. They don't want us to be critical thinkers and question, right? This is the whole thing. It's like by design. But communities, villages, and tribes all around the world, they teach their little girls this from the very beginning. The elders, the wiser women, they are who are teaching this. There's the understanding of the red tent. It is celebrated when you have your menstrual cycle. When you are what's referred to as a white moon bleed, okay, that would be meaning that you get your menstrual cycle around the new moon. There are women who are referred to as red moon bleeders. They get their cycle closer to the full moon. And it is said that the women who are the red moon bleeders are the medicine women. They're the healers. They don't menstruate at the same time as the other women because they are there to take care of and to hold space for the women who are going through their menstrual phase at that time. When those women who get their period at the new moon are done theirs, then these women allow their bodies to go through that process and to go through the shedding. And so there's this ebb and flow and this balance, that this real yin and yang of energy that happens. And so I don't try to sync up to the moon. I have a menstrual cycle that's between 26 to 28 days long. I go based on the rhythms of my cycle and my body. If I have big stress that happens, one of the first things that will show up for me will be in my period. It will either come earlier, which might mean I was so stressed that I didn't ovulate that month and I had a progesterone dropout, or I've only ever had this happen once in my life. And it was actually in April, like a month and a bit after everything happened in 2020. We're at a 36-day cycle. I've never had that happen in my life unless I was pregnant with my children. And I took multiple pregnancy tests and I was like, oh my God, am I going to be 41 and pregnant? No, I was 40 at the time, but I was like, oh, this is not part of the plan. And I was not. But it's that stress response that happens. I'm not trying to follow the moon. What I am aware of with the moon is the energy. This last full moon that happened on an energetic level for me, extremely powerful, not because of my menstrual cycle, but because the energy and the pull of the moon. Okay. So women who don't have a period, your governing body and force, it is the moon. That's what you're attaching to because you no longer have those phases and those cycles based on a bleed in your body. And this is like, it is new information. I totally understand how you're like, I'm hearing her. I see her mouth moving. I do not understand what she is saying. This is why I have all the videos in the site and why we teach you and reiterate it over and over again so that you get it. Maybe TMI, never TMI with me, ever, just so you know. I talk about poop and periods for a living. There's no such thing as TMI, and I love it. My daughter and I talk about our bleeds, cramps, bloating, sore boobs around my husband and son, and my husband doesn't want to hear about it, but we don't care. Good for you. Good for you. I want my son to be empathetic and compassionate to women and their cycles. Beautiful. You are a beautiful guide for, even though your husband is like, oh, I don't want to hear about it, you're teaching him. And whether or not he recognizes it, he is taking it in. And your son is very lucky to have you as a mom. Because I've said this time and time again on podcasts and when I teach this, is that I want my son to grow up being the kid that when he is in class or he is out in public, and he notices that a girl has had a situation where she has bled through, it happens to all of us at some point, that he is not the kid pointing the finger. He is not the kid making fun. He is the kid that takes his sweater or his coat off and he gives it to her to tie around her waist. That he is not the kid that when one of his girlfriends is not in a very good mood, or somebody he's dating or whatever it may be, that he says things like, oh, are you PMSing? Oh, is it your period? Or you're being bitchy? Not acceptable. Right? Not okay. And so that is a gift. I think that's amazing. And we need more of those conversations. Okay, I think that's it for questions there. So I hope this was enlightening. I hope you enjoyed kind of getting a behind the scenes look at just like the amount. Like I said, there's over 70 videos. So what I always recommend is that you start within the pre-prescribed calendars that I've created for your first 3 to 4 months, a season. You're trying to create a rhythm. You don't get a rhythm in 2 weeks. You don't create a rhythm in 1 month. You have to understand the rhythm and the actual cyclical nature of your ovaries is 90 to 100 days. That is 3-ish months. So we want to make sure that whatever we're doing it for that length of time. Then you can start to pick and choose from the different movements that are in the library. And now you get super creative and you are customizing your workouts based on where your cycle is at, but you get to choose. Is it going to be upper body I do today, lower body, Pilates? Is it going to be free weights, a barbell? Are we doing bands? Am I going for a walk today? Am I going to join Jen for one of her, stretch sessions? Am I going to do ballet? Is it going to be jazz? Like we have dance that's involved in all of this. I have all these different women bar classes, like all of this in there, and you get the opportunity to pick and choose. And like I said, it's lifetime access. You're never going to lose the accessibility to it. So Yeah, it is. And try not to, I know it can feel like a lot to think about because it's new information, but think of how you would explain that to your kids when they're learning a new unit in school or a new subject. You would just be like, it's new to you. It's going to take time to understand it. And it's no different with this. So go back, listen to this again when the recording comes out if you need to. Go onto the podcast. I have tons of episodes where I talk about this. Stay connected with me on Instagram. Michelle, the price of it, you can pay in full. It's $497, or you can do it in 2 installments. Okay. So, because again, you're not buying a workout series, you're buying a lifetime membership and all the upgrades and everything that comes with it, all your meal plans, your calendars, like plus, 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 plus. Yep, 497. Oh, thank you, Tara. Tara says it's worth it. And it is. I'm telling you, it'll change. Um, it'll change your connection to you and your body. I can guarantee it. So, anyways, ladies, I'm going to hop off. I hope you are going to be going to bed soon and that you have an amazing night. And I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to connect with me. And as always, wishing you more simplicity and more ease in all that you do. Yes, Michelle, I do infos about the Hormone Project. That actually, November 23rd, I'm doing a webinar about that. So stay tuned. Take care, ladies. Have a good night.